Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. A bit delayed because of technical problems at my end, which I apologise, but it's nothing to do with beyond me.
Absolutely. Well, no, you need sons and daughters around to actually help you at this moment.
Yeah, and I happen to be on my own at the moment, so it's very difficult. But we've got there, haven't we, in the end?
Mental note: we will not go on air with Anne and Nick with you on your own.
No, I need a chaperone. Anyway, look, shall we, without more ado, say hello to our special guest today? I'm delighted to say he's joining us from his home in Birmingham, none other than the multifaceted performer, Joe Lycett. Hi, Joe.
What an intro. I love it. Hello, thanks so much for having me on your show.
Yes, it is a show. It's a live stream.
It's a live stream. We're streaming live.
Yeah,
how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. I've had a very creative day, actually. I'm doing that classic lockdown thing of making sourdough bread like everyone else.
You're where the flour is going.
I'm where the flour's going. Although I can't find flour for love nor money.
I know, isn't it hard?
So I've been using whatever I can get my hands on with mixed results.
I mean, why do you feel the need to make bread of your own?
Because before lockdown, I was working really hard, doing lots of television, and I was very sensible with my eating because I didn't want to look at myself and feel a bit chubby on telly. And now I'm not really doing much stuff on telly because I'm in lockdown. I'm eating like an absolute pig.
Me too.
Have you got bigger?
Oh yeah. I've put on, I think, getting on for about 3/4 of a stone, I think, in lockdown.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I've just been eating so much bread.
And what else are you doing with yourself in lockdown? So it can be a bit frustrating and a bit isolating and a bit lonely.
Yeah, well, I've really found gardening, actually. It was something that I wanted to try. I was doing a lot of like little things in the garden, but not really having the time to focus on it. And last year I did tomatoes for the first time ever and just found them so magical and wonderful. And that first taste of a tomato you've grown yourself is a beautiful thing. And so I've had the plan this year to do a bit more in the garden. And actually I've just been given the opportunity to do as much as I possibly can, I suppose. So I'm growing aubergines. I'm doing these things called cucamelons. Have you ever heard of a cucamelon?
No. I can work out what they are, but I've never heard of them.
It's well, it's close to a melon. They're about this big apparently, and they look like little melons, but they taste like cucumber with a bit of lime. I've literally never had one in my life, but I'm going to try and grow one.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
And of course, it's a bit ironic that a year ago or so, your house was absolutely a tumult of activity, wasn't it?
It certainly was. You were in it.
Oh, tell me about this, because I can't quite get my head around this, that you threw some sort of a big opening ceremony in your house for the extension of your kitchen.
Yeah.
And the Lord Mayor came, something like that?
Yeah, you're right to not be able to get your head around it, because I still can't either. It was literally, it was a joke email that I sent. I was having my kitchen done, and I wanted to open it with like I wanted a plaque. I didn't even want a party really. I just wanted a little plaque on the wall. That's all I wanted. And I thought, well, I'll start high and go and work backwards. So I went to the Lord Mayor of Birmingham, because she opens things. That's what she does. And she said no. Well, her people said no. The office of the Lord Mayor said no, because it's a private event and the Lord Mayor doesn't do private events, which is fair enough. But that got me thinking, well, how could I make it public? If that's the only deciding factor, then surely we can make it public. So what I did is I raffled tickets off to people for the Lord Mayor's charity, and people could donate whatever they wanted, and 4 members of the British public won, and I met them in a pub around the corner from me because I didn't want them to know, didn't want my address to get out. So met them in the pub, then we blindfolded them, took their phones off them.
Unbelievable. It's like something out of my 5.
I know, it's mad. And we drove them. It was great actually, because my dad drove them, and my dad was so worried about my address getting out there, he drove this ridiculous route that took ages, driving around all the side roads of Birmingham. And then they were walked into the house, and then the Lord Mayor, Yvonne Mosquito, arrived. There was a red carpet in the kitchen. She shook all the hands of the builders who'd worked on building it. And then she cut a ribbon. She did an amazing speech where she talked about how it was a momentous day for Birmingham. No. And then we all got drunk.
Oh, that's wonderful. I've got to hang on, just ask one more question here, because for anyone who doesn't live in and around Birmingham, doesn't know, the Lord Mayor is called Yvonne Mosquito?
Well, she's not anymore, because she's now, I think she's actually finished entirely, but she was, you only do a year as the Lord Mayor. But yeah, her name is Yvonne Mosquito, which is
a name, isn't it?
It's a brilliant name, and it's at that point when I tell people the story where they go, "You've made this entire thing up.
Yeah,
none of this is real." And I have to do a bit of Googling to prove that she is or was the Lord Mayor.
So that amazing kitchen where you had so many VIPs, because Nick was there for a start, is what, behind you somewhere? Oh, look, there you all are.
Yes, there I am with Shafali.
Oh.
And Nick.
Shafali does the weather on Midlands Today, Annie.
Oh, right.
Yes, Shafali's, and she did the weather live from the kitchen on BBC Midlands Today. Just a little side thing.
That was an enormous Midlands event.
It was huge. It's it's up there with, I mean, what else has happened in Birmingham? I'm trying to think what else has happened.
Yeah, I don't know.
The opening of the library,
Parliament and things like that. It's the same sort of thing.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just through there. I would have come to you from the kitchen, but the Wi-Fi is not very reliable there. So I thought, just so I could speak to you. But you're welcome anytime, man, if you want to pop round.
Yes, because I feel left out. I mean, I should have had an invitation, clearly.
There's some lovely sourdough in there as well.
Well, yeah, because I'm a fellow Brummie, you know.
Oh, there he is with the Lord Mayor.
There you are.
There we are, yeah.
Oh, that's a lovely picture.
It's great. She was so nice as well. She was really accommodating, and it was a really happy day. It was lovely. And yeah, it was a year ago, about last week, wasn't it?
And the sun was shining. It was a beautiful day, wasn't it?
It was gorgeous. Yeah, we couldn't have asked for better weather. And my dad was on the bar. We had other. I invited everyone that I could think of who were Birmingham dignitaries. Alison Hammond was busy. So it was Nick. We had Becky as well, from Becky Wood from the Midlands Today. We had Barbara Nice. Catherine Ryan came. I said you're welcome to come to her, but didn't think she would come. And then she got the train all the way and brought me a gift, and that was lovely. Yeah, it was a brilliant day, and the whole day I was sort of couldn't really believe it was happening. You know, I was sort of going, "This is mad that this has happened."
Yeah, but you've clearly got one of those minds that takes those sideways tracks on things. I mean, having watched some of your programs, you think of things that other people would never in their million years think of doing.
Yeah, maybe. What I love about Nick introduced the weather on the news that evening, live from my kitchen, before he came to the opening, and he said in his introduction, it was Barbara Nice, who's a local comic who does a brilliant podcast, and I was on her podcast a few days ago, and I think you did it recently, didn't you, Nick?
Yeah, I did it on Friday. Yeah.
She's so funny. She's really absolutely brilliant, and a local, but also kind of UK legend. People love her around the country. But she said that the thing that she loved about the introduction that Nick gave was that he said it started off as a joke and then it became a thing. And that is basically how my life operates. Everything starts as a joke, and then suddenly, oh, this is happening now. This is real.
Oh, look.
There we are.
Hang on, I don't understand that photograph.
No. I mean, it takes a bit of looking at, doesn't it?
You've known me a long time, but you didn't realise I had a twin brother.
No, but the one on the left is a little bit thinner than the one on the right.
Yeah, I was hoping you wouldn't notice that.
Pre and post lockdown.
Yeah, exactly.
How are you guys finding lockdown? Are you inflating as well? You both look well. You both look like you're not eating sourdough.
No, I've put on at least half a stone, because every time I go into the kitchen, I open the fridge.
Yeah.
You walk in, and it's something you automatically do, and then you think, oh, I'll have a bit of that and a bit of that and a bit of that.
And as soon as the light comes on the fridge door, you start saying, "Hello, good evening, and welcome. My name's Anne Tonight." One of those. But yeah, I'm finding I'm doing a lot of walking, an enormous amount of walking, and Pilates. So actually, I have lost 4 pounds.
Oh wow! I think you're the only person that's lost weight during lockdown. That's amazing.
I'm amazed because I'm eating a lot and brackets drinking a lot, but keeping very fit. Let's talk about what you're doing in life, Joe. I mean, you have timed it really well, because all these programs you obviously recorded before lockdown, and suddenly whoosh, they're out there. Sewing Bee and Joe Lycett's got your back. Perfect timing for you, eh?
Yeah, it's been a sort of odd one, really, because and I was nervous about Got Your Back particularly. I wasn't nervous about Sewing Bee because I knew that I would, or I didn't know, but I was confident that people would find that soothing and a good distraction. But Got Your Back is a bit more
edgy.
It's a bit more edgy, yeah. It's a bit more Channel 4, and so I was nervous about it going out in lockdown because I wasn't sure if people would care about the things that we were talking about. But actually, companies have behaved in lockdown. A lot of companies have behaved brilliantly. I was reading about Timpson's, how amazing they've been, and they've furloughed a lot of their staff, but they've topped up the additional pay at something like $500,000 a week it costs them, but they said it's worth it to keep their staff going and whatever through the crisis. That's how you behave as a company in this time. And so many companies have behaved terribly, and not just to their staff, but to customers. And there's a lot of injustice out there at the minute. And so actually there's a thirst from the public actually to see justice being done and seeing companies being called out for kind of their misdemeanors.
But I was going to say, would a comedian such as Joe Lycett have expected to be doing programs like this if you've been asked?
No, not at all. I mean, I didn't expect. Literally, my goal was to get a weekend at the Glee Club in Birmingham. That was my kind of. I thought once I've done that, I'm living off comedy, and I'm, what an amazing thing that is. So the rest of it is all surplus. It's all on top, and what I'm thrilled about is that there were lots of avenues I could go down. I was very fortunate that Channel 4 wanted to make a show with me, and I'm really thrilled that they decided that this is the sort of thing that they would commission, because whatever happens, I might not make anything ever again, but the thing that had my name on it actually helped people as well as being funny and whatever. So I'm really proud of it.
When they came to you with the idea, was it fully formulated? Did they know that you were interested in that sort of thing, or was it totally out of the blue?
Well, so it wasn't Channel 4 didn't come to me. It was a production. There was a few production companies that sort of suggested that the stuff that I do in my stand-up could lend itself to a sort of modern version of That's Life, essentially. And I wasn't familiar with the That's Life format, actually, so I had to go and do my research.
That because you're so blooming young.
Because I'm a spring chicken, not so spring anymore, but a chicken. So I did a bit of research, and it did feel right. And it was the production company that make it, called Rumpus, who are brilliant, and it was their suggestion that we make it journalistically really sound and really it's all properly researched and it's not frivolous. So that the jokes can kind of be layered on top, but underneath is a real rooted, proper, consumer program. And I wouldn't have thought to do that. So that is all them. And I'm glad they did, because gosh, the lawyers at these big companies really like to make their money, don't they?
And it's also created a lot of savings of money, hasn't it? You've got money back for people, got people to apologize. Loads of people.
Yeah. The influence of it has been amazing, really. So amazed by how effective it's been in certain ways. In the first series, we managed to get back about, it was sort of tens of thousands of pounds for, one girl, we got back about $8,000 who'd been scammed. And
she was the NatWest girl, wasn't she?
Yes, yeah. Claire Leslie, a great woman.
What I thought was interesting is that your approach isn't like some of the old-fashioned consumer programs of the 80s and 90s. Your approach isn't aggressive. You're still quite gentle with people, but very persuasive, and they sort of get you. And that's I think you get some of the triumphs you get.
Yeah, well, I've always felt I'm not an aggressive person, and I don't. all of the kind of stings that we do are really unnatural to me, because I don't like to create a sort of too much of a fuss, really. And so it's the whole thing. Those sometimes I really hate doing them, because they feel really, I have to kind of G myself up and go, this is for the right reasons. But I think when you aren't aggressive with them and you just say you're silly, but you kind of tell them what you know about what they're up to, it is really hard for them to be aggressive back, because they're not it's sort of disarming, I suppose. And yeah, it doesn't always, but it does seem to work. And companies seem to be really frightened of being made fun of. They don't mind being told off particularly, and if you expose them, they obviously don't want to be exposed as doing bad things. But if suddenly they're going viral because I've taken the mick out of them, suddenly it's a PR issue rather than, it becomes a big thing.
What about Hugo Boss then?
Oh yes, mwah! Well, that is still to this day one of my things I'm most thrilled with, and did not expect in any way. I thought the Birmingham Mail would pick up on that, and that was it. And then it went global. So for those that don't know, Hugo Boss was a story on our last series, on our current series, and they have been sending these very thorough legal letters to small businesses. So one of the businesses that we sort of focused in on was this company called Boss Brewing in Swansea, and they make they're a little brewery, make lovely little beers basically. And they were given a cease and desist, which was to stop using the word boss in their beers, in a couple of their beers, because Hugo Boss supposedly were worried that would impinge on their fragrance line, which nobody's confusing those two things. It's just them, as far as I'm concerned, being heavy-handed. And so we thought about it. We had quite a few meetings about it, and the research was sort of ongoing, and we were trying to work out the best approach and how we kind of really show them up. And I just had the idea in the meeting. I was like, well, they don't like people using their name. What if I change my name by deed poll to Hugo Boss? They can't stop that from happening.
Now let me stop you there, because we've got a little clip which illustrates what happened next.
Okay, great. He's so funny. I love Alan Carr. God, he's brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant.
You did change your name.
Yeah.
You've changed it back now, haven't you?
I've changed it back now. That was the hardest decision, actually, whether to change it back or not, because the joke potentially would be. I couldn't work out whether the joke would be funnier if I died with the name Hugo Boss. Mm-hmm. And what we had a long discussion about it, and what we realised was that it was detracting from the other stories that we were talking about. And the artist in me was really like, I want to stick with it, but it did start to kind of. Because of the nature of the press of it afterwards. Yeah. And it actually felt nice to just sort of draw a line under it and say, we've done our job there, and we've made your point. We've made our point, and now on to the next thing. But yeah, I changed as much as I could, because there were certain things that, so for example, the DVLA wouldn't let me change my driving license, because my signature as Hugo Boss is quite phallic, I suppose I would describe it. And they rejected that, because they said it's something like, I've got the letter from them. I'm going to get it framed, I think, because it's so funny. They said that, it's a document. It's a form of identification, a national form of identification, your driving license, and it can't have any obscenities on it or something. So, well, while we're sort of venturing into that sort of area, it's the first time I've ever used the word phallic, I think, in a broadcast. But you are sort of noted initially for being risque and outrageous, yes? Well, I don't know really. I sort of I straddle a line. Straddle sounded euphemistic then, didn't it? Yeah, it did a bit. I straddle a sort of weird mix of things, because Sewing Bee is, family friendly, very gentle television. And then I do sort of Channel 4 stuff and later night stuff where, I love a swear word, and I love being a bit, saucy, I suppose. So I don't really know how I get away with both of it. I think maybe it's the bit of camp, and to be honest, I don't know. And I'm sure at some point it'll all come crashing down. I'll say something that will ruin everything. But yeah, people seem to allow me to get away with stuff that really shouldn't get away with.
What do your folks make of it and your family? Sorry, Annie, of your sort of initial image, the way people perceived you. Your folks, your family.
My family. They've been great. They love it. Mum's featured more in my stand-up than Dad, and I think Dad started to get a little bit sad that he wasn't being talked about in the stand-up. So my last show, there's a little routine about my dad in it, and I think he's quite pleased with that. He seems quite chuffed about it. But they're lovely. They've been You met them, didn't you? You met them at the opening.
Did indeed, yeah.
They're so supportive, and always have been. And when I was at school and doing musical theatre stuff in school holidays, and I used to do little bits of radio and stuff, they were always, they drove me there, and anything was, exciting. It wasn't, oh, why are you doing that or whatever. It was always encouraged. They've been nothing but brilliant parents.
And you've always sort of been upfront that you're bisexual, you say, but I even saw someone describe you as pansexual. What on earth does that mean?
I can help you there. I've described myself as pansexual. It's also a form of bisexuality. It's a sort of it's an intellectual way of looking at my sexuality. It's basically bisexual. So I'm basically attracted to men and women. But what I realized was that I'm not just attracted to people because of their gender, but often it's to do with all sorts of ethereal factors, magical things that I can't really put my finger on. It could just be the way it's often charisma, or the way somebody talks, or the way if somebody's really engaged in something, that's often really quite alluring. And sometimes it's just they've got lovely arms, or they've got whatever, and it just gets you you get attracted to it. And so gender is involved in that, of course, but so many other things are. And I just felt like the word bisexual just essentially puts it all onto the gender. And actually there's a myriad of different ways that you could describe your sexuality. I like younger people, I like older people, I like fat people, I like thin people. There's all sorts of different ways you could describe it, and pan just basically acknowledges that. But as I say, it's an intellectual, slightly stuffy kind of way of looking at it. Not stuffy, but sort of haughty, I suppose, way of looking at it. But if I'm honest with myself, that's how I view my sexuality. But if somebody asks, most of the time I'll just say I'm bisexual, because it's easier.
And it's also a good part of your stand-up, isn't it? You are.
It's great fun. Sexuality is because everyone has some form of sexuality, and it's fun to play with. And I don't take any of it too seriously, so it's good fun to just sort of to use as a kind of comedic tool.
Are you missing, actually having that thing with an audience? You do stand up, you get to know an audience, you get to know how to handle an audience. Suddenly, here you all are on your own. Do you miss that?
I do. I thought you were going to ask me, do I miss sex? And I definitely do that. It's a strange one. Because I've been doing these TV shows, I've not been doing loads of stand-up. And one of the things I had planned was to do a bit more. And I had a few gigs at the Glee Club booked in, some work in progress gigs. And there was going to be a gig to commemorate the Lord Mayor opening the kitchen in Birmingham as well on Sunday. So all of that's been postponed. We'll get round to it when we're allowed. But yeah, I do miss it, because I know a lot of stand-ups are doing gigs on Zoom and things like this. And I love having a chat with people. This sort of thing I could do all day. But doing stand-up on Zoom is not. It doesn't feel quite right to me.
Are you?
No, and some people have managed it really well, but I just feel like I trained with an audience. I did nearly 15 years doing live stand-up. That's what I do. And actually doing comedy to a camera without an audience and any of that feedback is a different thing, and it doesn't interest me as much. The live thing is the thing that I love.
Well, you can combine that, can't you, when you do the Palladium or live at the Apollo or something like that? You've got both, haven't you? Television and the live audience. That must be perfect.
Yeah, I love that. I love that that mix.
The Palladium is sort of pinnacle, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's the history of that venue. You got walking around seeing the posters of the people that played there, and it's just amazing. Yeah, so playing that stage is definitely an absolute highlight. I've got the thing framed. They do like a little poster of the Sunday night at the Palladium thing, and I've got that up in my room upstairs because that's a real like.
Did you have a star on the dressing room door?
I think I didn't have my own dressing room because it was such a busy show, and there's not that many dressing rooms there. Wow. And I think that when they do TV stuff there, they fill it with all stuff. So I think I was just in a corridor. So no, unfortunately not.
You've done so many shows as well as a guest, the likes of Just a Minute, I think, and Would I Lie to You? I mean, I absolutely love Would I Lie to You. Is that a real to do?
That show is, I think Lee Mack particularly, I mean, they're all brilliant, but Lee Mack, the stuff that he's doing on that show is close to godliness in terms of the comedic work he's doing there. It's like the best of improv and audience interaction and silly, and it's all family friendly. You know, I think it normally goes out about 8 o'clock. It's such a comedic masterclass, and the way that they've cast it so that David Mitchell is kind of up against him, and
contrast,
and so forensic with it, and that show is rightly beloved, and yeah. No, I loved it. I've done it a couple of times, and yeah, I'm always.
It's hilarious. I laugh out loud watching that.
Yeah, me too. That's the pinnacle of the panel show, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's the best around at the moment by a mile.
But if you're up against, if you're going in to record a program like that with so many names who you admire yourself, who we all find really, really funny, do you feel a bit nervous beforehand because you're up against it, aren't you?
Yeah.
It is really you to be funny and to have that many one-liners, and I don't know, that's real competition, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's the fun of it. Like, and there's a moment before you do anything like that where I imagine you guys have it like any live telly or whatever. You get that sort of buzz, and at first, when I first started doing stand-up, it was crippling, and I wanted to get rid of it. I was like, oh God, like just get it done so it's out of the way. And actually, the more you do it, the more you realize you can feel that kind of adrenaline pumping, and you start to use it, and it becomes. I get really excited by the rush of it actually, and the thrill of it. And so yeah, it is nerve-wracking, but that's good because that's when you're on, when it's really going. If you stop being nervous, then why bother? As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And what happens afterwards? Do you all go back to the green room and knock out the whiskey or something?
I shouldn't, but often I do. And I remember the last time I did Would I Lie to You, funnily enough, I went to they normally have like a little room that they just have a few drinks in.
Yeah.
And where do they film Would I Lie to You? It's just outside of London. And I was going back to Birmingham afterwards. And I was like, I need to go back to Birmingham. And Lee Mack was like, I'll have a glass of wine. So I had one glass of wine, and that turned into 2 and 3 and 4. And I was so drunk in the back of this car all the way back to Birmingham, and like the back of the car was spinning. Like I'd really let myself, because the rush of the adrenaline, you just keep going. So I try now to sort of, particularly if I've got to go home, I'll sort of try and pace myself so that I don't absolutely. But it's Lee Mack's fault. I'm blaming him.
Because Nick and I were stuck in green rooms afterwards, after some sort of program we'd been on, where with a couple of comedians I remember their names, and you laugh so much, and they set each other off, and you laugh so much you ache all the way home. Your jaw physically aches as you're going home.
You get the likes of Ken Dodd in a green room after.
Oh God. Oh. Was he long? Did he go on for a long time?
Forever.
Yeah.
He just didn't stop. It was amazing.
Yeah. He loved it, didn't he? I mean, he was like.
Frank Carson did the same. He used to go on and on and on and on. And you have to pack him in a taxi and send him.
How does a comedian like that? How does he have about 5 hours worth of stuff all in his head, and he just keeps going? Starts at 7:30, he's still going at 1:30 or something.
I know. How old was he when he finished? He kept going.
90.
He's 90 something. Yeah. I think. The way I was asked recently whether I write my stuff down, and actually I've never written, like, I'll write maybe a few thoughts, or like if there's a one-liner, I'll write the setup and punchline down. But my stand-up shows are written, there's often like a gesture that is essential to the routine, and actually it wouldn't work with just the words. And actually what it becomes is this sort of muscle memory of, oh, I do that now, and I say it like this, and it becomes part of you. And particularly when you're doing stand-up, and if you're on tour, you might do a show 200 times. it does become this sort of weird muscle memory where it's all in there as this sort of file of facts. So, and it is our job, you know, that is what we do. So, but 5 hours is definitely pushing it.
Have you ever frozen?
Not frozen, but I've definitely had moments where I've been on stage and I've gone, I don't know what the next bit is. And I've had to sort of go and like, and I just say it to the audience and I just go, give me a second, and I'll just have a sip of my drink, and then it comes. It's only happened twice, and it's normally when I'm midway through a tour and I'm absolutely exhausted. And it's sometimes you do 2 shows in a night and you go, oh, did I do that bit already, or is that the last audience? And you're like,
yeah, I can imagine.
You're a confident person.
Yes and no. I'm a bit of an appeaser, I think. So I don't really say, I don't say no that often, and sometimes I really want to say no. I'm a bit of a people pleaser, which I think is quite common for comics. But when I need to be, I can be super confident. I think you have to be, or mad to do stand up. But a lot of the time, I can be quite shy, and I like being sort of hermited away.
Oh, I've got a question here from somebody watching on YouTube right now. Hi.
Hi.
Ask him about getting a parking ticket in York.
Oh yeah. Well, that is what sort of started everything, really. I did well, I was doing a little gig in York. There was a brilliant gig. It's not there anymore. I think they've knocked it down. It was one of the best gigs in the country, actually. It's just like low ceilings and it's brilliant. Anyway, I got there late and I parked in a taxi rank. And I didn't realise I parked in a taxi rank. I was actually sort of thrilled, like, oh my God, there's this parking space right next to the venue. And I hopped in the venue, came out, and there was this parking ticket on there. And then somebody had written taxi rank on the side of my car in this sort of weird chalk, obviously a disgruntled taxi driver. And I, on the drive home, just started thinking about, I wonder if if I just don't pay this straight away and just contest it and see what happens. And then this whole mad thing, again, it started off as a joke and ended up as a thing. This whole mad exchange with the City of York Council and all this bonkers stuff sort of happened as a result of it. And it became a routine that I told on Cat's Countdown, which then went viral. And I hadn't even realized it had gone viral. And then people started saying to me that they'd seen me on YouTube or Facebook or whatever. And it all sort of spiraled from there, really. So yeah, I've got to thank the people of York for that parking ticket, because it's done me the world of good.
You know, the more you say it, the more it's.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it was it's like this sort of weird, sort of yellow chalk thing. It's amazing.
Oh my goodness!
It doesn't look like a Ferrari.
Beautiful Ford Fiesta she was. I wonder where she is now.
Yeah. But it's a very, very good name for an autobiography. You're far too young to write one yet, but it started as a joke and ended as a thing.
I might have that from you, Nick. That really resonated with me, and I'm glad Barbara Nice told me that you'd reminded me that you'd said that. That is.
Who are your heroes, Joe?
Oh my God, so many, too many to mention.
Well, the NHS obviously is, because you're wearing the T-shirt.
Oh yes, this is the NHS is stretched, and you can buy these for charity. I forget which charity it is now, but it's a good one. There were loads of people when I was starting out that I really admired, like Alan Carr, who we briefly mentioned earlier. He is one of the funniest people in the world.
He's an ultimate camp comedian as well, isn't he, really?
Oh, yeah. But just such a turn of phrase. What was it he said about, I was on Big Fat Quiz of the Year with him, and on we were on the same team, and then Claudia Winkleman was on a rival team, and she made this sort of bizarre noise. And he just went, "Oh, you're like a NutriBullet with a fringe." And where does that come from? It's beautiful. Like, it's brilliant. It's so funny, but so mad. And he's very good at as well is like brand names. So for some reason, if you say, "Oh, he threw a chocolate bar at me," it's not as funny as "he threw a Twix at me." Yeah. And I don't know why, but it just Twix gives more context or something. I don't know. I can't work out the science of that, but he's a real advocate for that. And if you watch his stand-up sort of forensically, as I have, he's full of those sort of and it'll be references like Londis and Twix and like all of these things that are just Woolworths, these like just things that we all know, but they make us laugh for some reason. So I love Alan Carr, and Michael McIntyre I watched loads of when I was starting out. I was a huge fan of his, continue to be. And then there are people that probably are less well known, like Paul Foote, who I really recommend people look for. He's sort of influenced a lot of comics, and is a one of a kind character. He's absolutely fascinating. He's brilliant. And then there's people like Sarah Kendall, who is an Australian stand-up who I watch loads of. Sarah Millican, who was brilliant and really a real good friend to me over the whole of my career. Has been such a good person for advice and friendship.
Do you learn from these people when you see them perform? I mean, I'm not saying do you nick their gags, but do you learn techniques and stuff?
Yeah, massively. You learn a lot from people who are brilliant at it, but you learn more from watching someone die. Like it's when someone's having a terrible gig, you get you. It was Roy Walker who said to me, I met him in Edinburgh very early on in my career, and he said, you don't learn to be funny when they're laughing. And that's so true. When they stop laughing, that's when you're scrambling around. You go, oh, is this funny? Like you learn, and it has to be quick because you got an audience in front of you and they haven't laughed for 30 seconds or whatever it is. Yeah.
Did you say Edinburgh there?
In Edinburgh, yeah.
You did stop at Edinburgh, didn't you?
Yeah, I've been to Edinburgh. I've been to the Edinburgh Fringe quite a few times.
It's a fantastic event, isn't it? A wonderful sort of feeling about the place.
It's amazing, yeah. There's another place that you can drink a lot at. Wow.
Yeah, I saw you interviewing Jess Phillips up there. So you did a sort of interview thing. Did you?
The MP.
Yes, yeah. That was last year, I think. Yeah, it must have been. Yeah, that was just the TV festival. They have the Fringe Festival, and alongside it is the TV festival. And the TV festival asked if I wanted to interview Jess Phillips. That they said that she'd agreed to go up, and I was like, absolutely, I'd be thrilled to. And I've not done many interviews really with, definitely not with politicians, but I know Jess, and because she lives around the corner from me, so she's a friend. So I knew that she would give me an okay time, and I tried to be as. No, what am I talking about? I'm not a political interviewer, so I didn't give her a grilling. I'm no Paxman, but
it was lovely. It was just a get to know you chat, wasn't it? It was lovely.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. But I don't know. I always sort of feel like you guys will know better. I always feel if you've got a politician in front of you, there's a sort of bit more of a responsibility to sort of. I suppose it's more if they're in power to go, what are you going to do about this?
Yeah, but also, and I agree with you a lot about that, but there's no point in absolutely shouting and being confrontational with people because they just shut up shop and close up.
Yeah.
Get a much better, in my opinion, if you answer hard questions gently and soberly and sensibly rather than being aggressive, because then you get so much heat, but you don't get any light. I think it's much more important to get people to open up and then they'll talk more to you.
Yeah, it's I'm fascinated in the Piers Morgan thing because he has the switcheroo in the way that people think about him at the minute has been extraordinary. And I know you guys, didn't you go on his program? You went on Good Morning Britain.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago.
And I think he's suffering the fact that the government have said they're not going to send anyone near him. So in some ways that kind of shows that he is to be feared, but in other ways he's own
worst enemy in that sense.
Scuppered himself. But then I think, well, actually, is that just the government? The government should just be sending people.
Oh yeah.
But to be fair, their argument, as I understand it, is that you don't get a chance to speak. He's just laying into you all the time. You start talking, he's back at you again. And I think they would say until someone allows us to speak, having been asked a question, there's no point in going there because it just seems like a contest rather than anything else.
I think a lot of government officials and MPs have had it their own way for so long. They've learned how to just keep talking and walk out of view. And I think maybe Piers turning the tables has actually shown them that he is somebody who will ask hard questions. I can't believe I'm defending him. But
no, yeah, that's the thing. I can't. But I do want people to go on that show. I want Piers to. I want to see Piers and Boris.
And when they just try and schmooze all over him, you know, like they schmooze, they've gone to schmooze school and they think they know what to say next. He cuts through it again, and I admire him for that.
Yeah.
It's tricky though, because it's what we were talking about before in terms of my program. Like, I'm just not that sort of person, and I don't like being in the presence of those sorts of people, because I find it really anxious inducing, and I feel like it's like being around a kind of bully, isn't it? It's like, oh God, are they going to pick on me next? I get that sort of feeling. And I think it's, I suppose it's all about context really, isn't it? And if you're running the country, then maybe you do need to be prepared for some tough questions. I don't know. It's an interesting change in the dynamic of broadcasting. I imagine it's very different to when you guys were doing breakfast telly.
So what are we keeping you from right now? What will you be doing in the next 5 minutes if we let you go now? Because we have run quite long.
I will be
sourdough.
No, the sourdough. If I go near it, I'll inflate even further. So I'll be straight out in the garden. I've got a few jobs that need doing. So I will be tending to my babies.
Yeah.
Well, we better let you go, Joe, haven't we? Don't you think, Annie? Should we release him?
I think we should release him because he's been talking for a long time.
It's been such a pleasure. What an honour to be on the programme with you. And yeah, I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm sorry we detained you because of my technical inability.
Hey, that's all right.
Celebrate the anniversary of the opening of your kitchen. I expect an invitation.
You'll be there. You'll be there.
Cheers, Joe. Thank you. Good luck.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Wasn't that lovely?
Fascinating, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What an interesting guy.
Yeah. Okay, I'd like to tell everybody to go to, if you're watching on YouTube right now, subscribe. It's free to subscribe, but it means then that we can tell you where we're popping up next and who we're talking to next, and also when we're actually going on Facebook.
Recorded for this will go on later, won't it?
We're working that out because it's taking us a while to work out all of the technicalities.
Yeah, don't get me involved.
No, don't worry. I don't think we will. What am I keeping you from? What are you up to today?
Today, well, having prepared for this and done all the bits and pieces of this, I may well go for a walk. Later in the week, I'm doing an interview for Midlands Today with the actress Helen George. You know Helen George, who's in Call the Midwife?
Oh, yeah.
Sang in the VE Day programme last Friday night so beautifully. Was it last Friday or the previous Friday? Anyway, I'm interviewing her for Midlands Today. I'm interviewing her on Wednesday. And otherwise, just lots of bits and pieces. I do this thing every week on Midlands Today called Mixed Heroes, doing a roundup of people who are doing wonderful things in the community, for the community during the lockdown. And that takes a bit of preparation and deciding who we're going to choose out of the hundreds of applications. So it's never quiet.
No, absolutely. And guess who we've got on next week here on with Anne and Nick?
An old colleague of ours.
Yes, well, she won't like the word old. But
no, a former colleague, all right.
We all go back a very long way. And that is the phenomenon that is Lorraine. Yeah,
she was our Scotland reporter in 1983, wasn't she? And you know, during our time on TVAM, we were doing something about Scotland, and I happened to say on air that I'd never ever been to Scotland. And after the programme, the Scottish Tourist Board were on like a shot saying, we invite you to come tomorrow. So I did go the next day, flew up there. I was met by Lorraine and was shown around lots of places like Loch Lomond and Edinburgh, Glasgow, and the other places. An absolute whirlwind job. Went to the studio of Taggart, you know, Mike McManus and all those sort of people. It was a really good experience. And that was, I spent a day with Lorraine in Scotland back in about 1984 or something like that. So she was terrific then, and she's done so well. And there she is, still doing programmes on breakfast television day after day, even now.
Yes, I used to complain about 10 years of getting up early in the morning to do breakfast television, but Lorraine has done it for an awful lot longer.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. So all credit to her. Look forward to talking to her next week.
Yeah, that'll be lovely. Okay, well, stay safe and well, won't you?
And you, yeah.
And me,
see you, girl. And
then we'll together next Monday.
To quote Vera Lynn, we'll meet again.
Oh, we'll meet again on Monday, if not sooner.
Yeah. Bye.